Hi everyone! I'm sorry that this video is going to be uploaded much later than I had originally planned. My husband and I had to travel for work this past week, and the schedule was just much more rigorous than either of us were expecting. So I did not get to sit down and make this video, but I have questions that I'm going to be answering. If you did not see my last video, I was just thinking, where do I begin? So pretty much, if you are potentially new to this channel, I was in a contest from 2009 to 2011. The prize was supposed to be a record deal, and I won. And this YouTuber named Tristan recently found out about the story from a podcast that I did with my friend. I can link everything down below. And he basically wanted to interview me on it and ask me all these questions. So we did that, but then both of us even realized that there was a lot of stuff that was left out of the video, different questions that came up, and we also actually talked for over 2 hours, and the video was only 30 minutes long. Obviously, you cannot cram 3 years into a 30-minute video, but we tried, and he did such a good job telling the story. I'm so thankful that he told it and how he told it. So if you want to go watch any of those videos, links will be down below. I also don't necessarily want to stay on this topic and subject. I don't think I'm going to be able to make this video one video as much as I would like to. It's probably going to have to be broken up into 2 videos because just the amount of time it takes to answer some of these questions. So it'll probably be 2 videos, and yeah. Okay. First question is an easier one compared to some of the other ones. It was, what was the song at the end of Tristan's video? This song is a song that I wrote in April of 2020. I had just turned 27, and I wrote this song to my 17-year-old self. So it's only about a year and a half old because I just turned 28 in April of 2021. The idea for this song being in the video was actually my father-in-law's idea. Whenever he heard the podcast I did with my friend, I briefly touched on this song, and he said the only thing that he did not like about the podcast was that it should have ended with the song. So whenever I told that to Tristan about the song and I sent it to him, he loved it and wanted to put it in the video, and him and his editor both thought they would do the photo and video compilation. I was cringing at the idea, but it ended up turning out really perfectly, I think. But at some point I will share it. I do want to share it. I have different ideas of how I would like to potentially share it, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm proud of the song. It was a very therapeutic write for me, just turning 27 and thinking, wow, I won this contest when I was 17, and how different my life is than I had expected that it would be when I was 17, thinking about 10 years from now. The next question is more something that I wanted to clarify. In the video, like I said, it was an originally 2-hour conversation, so stuff got cut out. I just wanted to clarify what all Mileyworld did pay for on those trips, because we talked about the finances throughout the podcast and in that video with Tristan. They, for both the LA trip and the Nashville trip, they paid for the flights and they paid for the hotel room, which is great because that's obviously a huge chunk. But the parts that they didn't pay for would have been the transportation when we weren't getting driven around, which was really only to and from the studio, and food, baggage, which, oh my gosh, I don't remember for sure, but whatever airline we flew, we had to pay for baggage, which is anywhere from $30 to $50 per bag per person. And then the other thing, the incidentals. So obviously whenever you check into a hotel, they have you put a credit card in and you get the money back, but they put that temporary hold on it, and sometimes that can be anywhere from $100 to $200. So that was really money that we had been expecting to use for the trips, and that was why it just ended up being a stressful part of the trip, navigating that. It's also interesting for me looking back as well, because not that we assumed that everything would be paid for, but I just think if you win a contest, typically any type of contest, it's an all expense paid type of deal. I don't necessarily think it should have been on us to worry about all that, especially because we just didn't have it at the time. I wanted to clarify though that they did pay for the hotel and they paid for the flights, but it was all the other stuff that quickly added up and proved to be a struggle. Next question. This is kind of tied with a couple of them. So, did we sue? Can we still sue after signing the agreement? And then someone was saying, isn't it suspect that I signed the agreement? And what is the other side of the story? We did not sue. This was for a lot of reasons. Basically, signing the agreement would have disabled us from pursuing any type of lawsuit. At that point, oh my goodness, I mean, I was 15, I think, when I entered, and I was 18 by the end. During that time when I had to sign the agreement, I was a mess. I was so broken. I started to really blame myself because I had it in my head that if I were better, they would have had to offer me something. It would have worked out, and it just wouldn't have ended the way that it did. During this process, whenever they are contacting us about this agreement, my dad really wanted to sue. I got in so many fights with him about it because he just really wanted to sue, and I did not want to be known as the girl that tried to sue Miley Cyrus. That was my number one thinking. There were other things along with that because I still wanted to make music at that point, so I didn't want to be blacklisted. I didn't know if this was something that could be hush-hush and not be publicized, basically, if I were to pursue a lawsuit. I also did not recognize at the time the difference between Miley herself and Mileyworld. I did not know until Tristan told me that there had been previous lawsuits against Mileyworld for different contests that they ran. So that's very eye-opening and really crazy to think about. I just don't know even what would have happened if we would have sued. We did not have the finances to do so, so that was a major factor. The other thing I always thought about was when you enter contests, there's typically the terms of agreements that you check and sign. So whenever I entered the contest, I must have checked something. So I just thought that they were covered against anything like this happening, and I just did not think there was any way that we'd ever win, so I didn't see the point of it, as well as just wanting to move on. And I didn't want it to be dragged on for another couple of years because, you know, lawsuits, sometimes it's back and forth and it's a crazy, difficult thing that happens. That was pretty much why I chose not to sue. My dad definitely wanted to. I think there was a time that I did want to, and then he didn't want to, so we were kind of on opposite sides of agreeing, which, I don't know. Looking back, I don't know how I feel now. I don't necessarily think that we deserved compensation for it. I obviously, though, think, looking back, it was very shady how they handled things. So even this person that said is suspect that I signed, I shouldn't have signed because it's my fault, essentially, and then I made these mistakes, and the other side of the story, I never got the other side of the story. I filled stuff in over the years. I ended up meeting somebody a couple years later that used to work for Miley, and I kind of heard through a grapevine that she fired all her management when she turned 18. I don't even know how true that is. So I, over the years, was just filling in these blanks and these pieces of what potentially happened. I do think that was a part of it, that, you know, we were both 15 when the contest started, and then by the end of it, she was going in a different direction, so they potentially, whoever even started the contest, couldn't rely on her for it anymore because she was moving on. I don't know, it's hard. I do have so many questions still when I think about it, just wishing that I had more information. It was hard reading some of the comments saying, you know, I made mistakes and I shouldn't have listened to them and what a fool I was to put my life on the line, which I totally agree to an extent, but at the same time, I just keep thinking about this scenario in my head, and that would be if you entered a contest and the contest was to win $1 million. First of all, the chances of you winning are slim, and then how often do people go into contests thinking that they're going to win? I never in a trillion years thought that I was going to win. It was so far off in the distance for something that I just could not even possibly imagine. So then, the people that run the contest after you win, after you did not believe that you could win, and this is your biggest dream, it'll change your life, all this stuff. Then contact you every other week, once a month, and say, hey, we're getting everything together. We're working on the details. We're figuring things out. Hold on, it'll just be a little bit longer. Wouldn't you wait for it if in a week or two or a month your, what's it called? Bank statement? Your checking account is going to have $1 million deposited into it. So that's just something that I have been thinking about a lot, because I could be hard on myself for the waiting game. And I have talked about how I regret not continuing to upload, but there were also some difficulties that kind of disabled me from continuing to upload during that time. There's just nothing that you can plan for in a situation like this. I maybe wish that we would have asked more questions along the way, but we were given the bare minimum throughout the process. And yeah, it was just a lot. It was a lot for a 17-year-old girl to go through. And, you know, it's like the dangling carrot in front of you where your dream is here, your dream is here, your dream is right here. It's so close, it's so close. And the whole entire contest felt like that. And then you win, and then still just this waiting game. So it was a really very crazy time, emotionally, mentally. All of it was just very hard on me and on my family, and I really just wanted to move on. So that was why we did not pursue any lawsuit, and why I just wanted to sign the agreement. I don't know if we still have the agreement. If we did, it would be buried somewhere at my dad's house. I was thinking about this, obviously, throughout this journey with Tristan making this video about if I found it, but they sent paper in the mail, and we had to send it back to them. So I don't even think they sent us 2 copies, because we were just supposed to send it back to them. There it is. I'm still waiting for the other side of the story. Another interesting thing that happened after uploading this video is talking to some of the other girls that were in the contest. If any of you went and watched the videos or were there during the voting thing. So Kristen, Emily, Riley, and Olivia are the ones that I have talked to. And I actually have talked to them over the years, so it wasn't like this is the first time that I've talked to them or anything, but they all messaged me about it, and it was just pretty crazy, because they all really didn't even know the extent of what happened, or I could say what didn't happen. Even just them saying they didn't even realize the emotional trauma that they went through, and as they were watching the video, it was bringing up so much for them, because it was a lot for all of us being teenagers, preteens at that point. So it was just really crazy. Which also leads into another question, because people were commenting on Sabrina a lot and Disney and Hollywood Records. To my knowledge, Sabrina moved out to LA after that time and just was auditioning for stuff. It wasn't anything associated with the contest. It wasn't like she got a deal from the contest. It was just that her family and her didn't stop auditioning. They just, you know, went out and kept auditioning. Some people were just saying how shady it was that she made it and I didn't, or the rest of us didn't, or whatever. But I don't think it was related. I just think she didn't stop. And then a lot of people were talking about Disney and Hollywood Records. There was no affiliation with Disney or Hollywood Records. It was never mentioned once throughout the contest. It was never mentioned at all. There was no trademark. There was no Disney logo. There was no Hollywood Records logo on anything. We did not know who the record deal was going to be with. We just kind of assumed it was going to be a new label, a startup, or something that Miley was going to have people under her, or something like that. I'm always hesitant to share and to talk about, obviously, this whole situation, because Miley's name is attached, and I do not blame her. There was a time I feel like I could say I obviously struggled with her, but I did not recognize the difference between the entities of Miley and of Mileyworld. And even just as the years went on, looking back and thinking, she was under so much. She was trying to get out from under Disney, all of this stuff that was happening. But there was this conversation that happened when we were in the studio in LA, and I could never forget it. They were talking about some of the contest, and Miley brought up this young girl that was in the contest and said how, she said, oh my gosh, that girl was so amazing. I wanted to sign her on the spot. And I said, oh, was it Sabrina? Because I'm like, Sabrina was amazing. I mean, all the girls in the contest, I sobbed every single round of that contest. I am not even kidding. I was a singer-songwriter sitting there just strumming my guitar, and they were all triple threats, dances and dance teams and all that. I literally sobbed. They were all so amazing. So Sabrina was 10 years old at the time, and she was incredible. So I'm like, oh, obviously it was Sabrina. And she said, no, it wasn't Sabrina. And I was like, okay. But even thinking about back on that conversation now where people are like, oh, it wasn't Miley's fault. I don't believe it was Miley's fault, but I also do feel that she potentially had more pull or say than people would think. I mean, even her just saying that comment that she wanted to sign that person on the spot, which is also why when things did not go as planned, I blamed myself and just thought, well, if I was better, she would have wanted to sign me, without recognizing all the other stuff that was going on with the deals and just industry and all of the craziness. It definitely took me a long time to come to terms with that part. Hi, if I'm editing Amy. I didn't record an outro for this video because I didn't know if I was going to make them 2 videos, but I am. So next video will probably be coming tomorrow or the next day after this is uploaded, and the next round of questions will be in there.